Alright, look, I get what you're saying for the most part. To be a great leader, you need to be unrelenting in your policies, strike terror in the eyes of the oppressors, and endorse a heavy work ethic. But I'm just not too sure about this dress code. It just seems inconvenient. You're sure they'll be cool with this? I guess maybe Rarity could glamify it up a bit, but... Well, alright, you're the expert here. Heck, if Celeste can just invent a national holiday for free cake, I guess mandatory citizen wear shouldn't be that big of a deal, huh? Hello my loyal subjects, Heather Blossom here, and this week on Character Spotlight we'll be taking on an underrated villain, King Sombra, the oppressor of the Crystal Ponies, and the main antagonist in the Season 3 premiere of My Little Pony. This is one of those villains that took time to be appreciated. Sure, there was some who liked him straight off the bat, but there were a lot more who didn't. And it's not hard to see why. In his first appearance, I myself found him to be underwhelming. He was very rarely on screen, and when he wasn't like the other baddies we'd come to know and love. There was no monologues, no clever jabs or references, hardly even a coherent sentence. There was just... My cursed slaves. Or if he was feeling particularly vocal... Some would come to say he showed little to no character. Then came fans like Browniebuck who argued that his character comes more from the themes he conveys, that of fear and depression, and show writer Megan McCarthy seems to support this depiction since she claims Sombra was influenced by Sauron for the Lord of the Rings saga, another character whose presence wasn't direct either but was more a looming threat. Though just because he wasn't on screen 100% of the time doesn't mean there weren't things we could glean about him from what he had left behind in the Crystal Empire. If you think about it, Sombra was pretty damn smart. The only thing that could defeat him was the Crystal Heart, and he hit it well, and made sure no one could tell the tale about it. It's even been theorized that he was the one who tore out that part about the Crystal Heart in the Crystal Empire history book. Then there was the fact that the only way to get to the Crystal Heart was through a passage only one who could use the same sort of magic as him could access. Then there was the terror trap he kept at the bottom of the staircase. It is reasonable to assume if Spike hadn't wandered down there with Twilight, she would have been stuck in place. At last, there was his final trap in the chamber of the Crystal Heart that allowed him to summon his dark crystals inside the palace when someone activated it. Again, if Spike hadn't been there, things would have ended in Sombra's favor. Man, if I was Sombra and, still alive, I would really hate that dragon. It took some time, but we soon received different depictions of the character in the IDW comics, particularly in Friendship is Magic issues 17 through 20, the Reflection story arc, Friends Forever issue number 4, and My Little Pony Fiendship is Magic issue number 1, which explored his secret origins. I won't spoil too much of the comics, though I will say some of these arcs were less than spectacular, but I will give a rundown of some interesting notes on his characterization. Take the first depiction in the Reflections arc. This story takes us to a parallel universe where the moral compasses have been swapped, so instead of being a dark magic-wielding tyrant, Sombra is instead a benevolent and compassionate leader who has been holding the line against two evil princesses. He was selfless, brave, and incredibly loving, and if I elaborated too much on the how and why, it would give away the ending. In Friends Forever issue number 4, the setting was the Crystal Empire, or more particularly, the Crystal Palace, so when some supernatural shenanigans seemed at play, naturally he was the first thing to come to mind. Of course it wasn't him, at least not something he caused directly. Come on, that's not a spoiler, like they'd have him be a real conflict in a Friends Forever comic. It ended up being that the problem had been from a selfish act he had committed 1,000 years prior for something extremely trivial, if you ask me anyway. Finally, we have Fiendship is Magic issue number 1, that told the tale of his origins in the Crystal Empire and how he was the cutest little orphan colt in the world. This depiction of Sombra was obviously the most innocent. He was also relatable and adorable, but I felt his transformation was a bit on the abrupt side. The actual place he originated from left me with more questions than answers, and when he finally is the bad guy we supposedly know and love, his narration feels hollow, and where did all the egotism come from? But, to be fair, fan interpretations can hardly be inspiring either, as oftentimes he's the same as before, a power-crazed tyrant now out for vengeance. He gets more speaking roles, sure, but I find oftentimes that the best fan iterations are when he's more involved with comedy, being over the top, having Archer levels of ego, and being as pompous as a Canterlot noble. As with all characters to ever exist, he gets shipped with basically everybody at some point. A lot of times it's with other villains or villainesses. A very popular one is with him and Princess Luna, and I can see the appeal. She was once a baddie herself, so she would probably understand him and sympathize far easier than any other member of the cast. And it's got that whole tragic appeal about it if we tackle it 1,000 years ago, a pre-Nightmare Moon. Personally, I'm more on board with the Sombra Pie ship, simply for the entertainment value. You can thank fanfics for that. At the very least, he's got some interesting trivia. For one, his name in Spanish translates to shadow. Makes sense for obvious reasons. Secondly, his voice actor Jim Miller, who also happens to be the show's storyboard supervisor, drew inspiration for his vocals from the Mastodon song Crystal Skull, which is a freaking awesome song. Someone make a PMV of that now! Then a funny thing to notice in the comics is when he was a cult and in his mirror dimension counterpart, his eyes were green instead of red. What this means I can only theorize, but I'm guessing that the dark magic residing within him is what causes the iris change. Also, he is often affiliated with staircases, sombreros, and Gak. Yeah, I don't really want to talk about that. I'm Heather Blossom. Make sure to stop by your town city hall to pick up your very own safety chain. Never be lost from your fellow countrymen again. Feel your patriotism reach new levels in the metallic line camaraderie. Hurry soon. This may be free, but if you are caught without a safety chain after tomorrow, you will be vaporized on sight. Wait a second. Sombra, have you been messing with my scripts?